Hello and welcome. My name is Luminara Serdar.
And I'm really happy to be doing this video today, this live, to talk about anxiety in our kids. Anxiety is such a huge issue for kids on the autism spectrum, but I think not just for kids on the spectrum, for kids in general, a lot for adults as well. So what I have to say could be applicable just beyond our kids, but I'm going to talk specifically about our kids on the autism spectrum. So welcome, thank you for being here today. So if your child, I hear this a lot with either my clients or other parents I talk to, because I go to the conferences and I talk to tons and tons of parents. If your kid has a really rigidness around schedule, really wants to do things at a certain time, has a certain routine around leaving the house, like, you know, the shoes have to be put on before the coat or something like that, like in a very exact, specific way. Timing, you know, rigidity and timing of their schedule, or when they sleep, or when they eat, or what they eat. So that can be anxiety, and that's kind of their way of like controlling something and knowing that something's going to be the same and safe and feel okay. Holding objects. My son used to clutch a Thomas the Train in his hand. I just got used to him having that everywhere we went. You know, he always had it in his hand. Some kids might have blankets or toys or stuffed animals. So that's definitely a sign. Sometimes, like when they're tight or rigid in their body, it can be other things besides anxiety, but that can be a sign. And all of these other things can be a sign of something else, right? Besides anxiety necessarily. Needing to have objects arranged in a certain way. So I've talked to some clients who the child has to have all the living room furniture exactly the right way, or the space completely cleared, or you know, one mom recently told me her son anyone who came in his presence couldn't have anything in their pockets. So these kind of things that, you know, the dining room chair has to be just so, and tucked in all the time. That's an anxiety type behavior. Holding in their waist. So I've talked to a lot of parents where the child maybe is still in diapers and will go hide to poop in their diaper, or is really afraid to use the toilet, or just afraid to let go of that waist. So that's definitely anxiety. My son used to be afraid to, I suspect he was afraid to go to the bathroom at school. I think he would urinate, but I don't think he ever pooped at school. Maybe he did, I don't know. But always when he came home, he would rush to the bathroom. So I figured he'd been holding it in most of the day. And so that could be a sign too. That one I know all too well. Fear of going to sleep. So it's nighttime, and I've talked to people whose kids have night terrors. They have bad dreams. I'm not sure everything that's going on there, but like you can be afraid to go to sleep if you're going to be terrorized in the night, right? It totally makes sense. Or just the fear that you're going to then be away from your parent. I know a lot of kids who want to sleep with their parents even as they're older. Actually, my son was like that. I purposely did co-sleeping because I don't, you know, it didn't bother me at all, and I'd rather have him close by, especially it was easier for nursing at night. And as he grew older, there was a real sweetness, and you know, I didn't mind until a certain point that I did, and I was like, okay, time to get you in your own bed. And then there's comforting nighttime routine kind of stuff you can do for that. So fear of going to other people, fear of going into school, fear of going to the therapist, fear of strangers. Of course, you know, your child's going to pick up on the people's energy. So if your therapist has, you know, isn't that kind, or maybe an aide or a teacher at school, might not yell at your child, but it seems like yelling at, like if I'm a little boy and it's kind of a harshness. Sometimes tone is more important than the words, so it seems like that's really harsh coming at me, so there could be a fear with that, anxiety there. Definitely separation anxiety. needing to know where mom is, needing to know where dad is, needing to know where the sibling is. So always kind of needing to be nearby, you know, someone known in the family. Shrinking behaviors. So, you know, kind of moving back, or I was really shy as a kid, so I understand this one a lot, just moving back from people, because I think our kids on the spectrum, and many kids these days, are very, very sensitive energetically, and they can kind of feel people's energy coming before they even, you know, say anything, perhaps. And it's overwhelming. And it's overwhelming to a system that actually isn't handling the input well. All right, why are kids so anxious? Well, there's a lot behind the why, so I want to go into that, and then I want to go into some strategies for helping them. I already did with the sleep, you know, having a routine for bedtime. I mean, that's always comforting for any child, actually. It's comforting for us as adults. You know, that sameness, our body likes that sameness, but when it's so rigid, then it can be, you know, really hard for someone to always accommodate that, and for families to accommodate that. Okay, so why are kids so sensitive? Well, I already did say that their open energy field and the overwhelm they feel. You know, imagine if you have, you know, you're really open and you're hearing, you know, 12 different noises at once. You're hearing the train outside, you're hearing the birds, you're hearing the, I don't know, maybe the refrigerator humming, you're hearing the music, you're hearing the video on, you're hearing your parent speak. And normally our brain can dampen these noises. It's called our sensory inhibition system. And we can take a bunch of noises and decide what's important. It's actually what, you know, Zoom video does. When I use Zoom video, it, before my voice amplifies, it will say, oh, is this background noise, or is this the person really talking? And then it'll decide and then amp up my voice. So that's what our brain does. You know, it decides what's important, what's the incoming information, what do we need to know right now, and it'll dampen the rest. And so our kids aren't dampening any of that, so it's very overwhelming. Yeah, so that overwhelm and that sensory system, and then there's a lot of reasons why that sensory system isn't working well, and we all know that kids with autism have sensory processing issues and, you know, brain kind of scrambling type things. We know it's neurological. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Think about when your child goes out, like to the grocery store with you, or in a public place where there's a lot of people. They might move closer to you, or, you know, that, like, all those energies of the people are also there, you know, the feelings, the emotions. So just think about that, and think about what might be going on in their body, and how hard it might be for them. And then we might understand the anxiety. One thing that's happening in the brain is that well, I mean, besides being, you know, having these sensory issues, not interpreting things properly. So not only do we have the sensory issues, and then areas of the brain don't develop in the right order, or don't develop when they're supposed to, and so something else develops and kind of bypasses that area of development, or maybe there's kind of tangles in the brain, so our neurons aren't really talking to each other directly, but they're all kind of tangled up. In our development, what happens is our brain grows, and then we kind of like if you trim a tree, you know, a tree has all these extra branches growing in the spring, and sometimes you need to trim them so they're not going to get in the way, or inhibit the growth of the tree or the buds or whatever's going, you know, the flowers. So so sometimes our brains do that, they grow, and then they need to be clipped, or, you know, they could get tangled up. So it's a normal process of development, and that could be happening. All right, let me get to a couple questions. One question: how to recognize anxiety in nonverbal kids. Well, we're going to look at body behavior then, okay? We're going to look at, like I said, that shrinking, that overwhelm when your child's out in public, or when there's a lot of different sounds. A lot of our kids will cover their ears. They can't hear the vacuum, it's too loud, or the hair dryer, certain noises are way too loud for them. Yes, that's a hearing issue, but imagine if like someone just blasted a foghorn in your ear, how frightening that would be, right? So that could that's going to amp up our fight or flight system, fight, flight, or freeze, and keep us in that what's called sympathetic nervous system dominance mode. That's the fight or flight. So a lot of our kids get stuck in that, so they're constantly stressed inside the body, and then everything seems to be a big stressor. So so loud noises, that's going to be a sign that your child, if they're so sensitive to that, they're probably living in a world of anxiety, a soup of anxiety inside. Okay, a child child is low functioning and cries when home, does better in school. What do I do? Okay, for that, I would suggest check what EMFs you have in your house, electromagnetic frequencies. Maybe you've already done that. Wi-Fi signals, cell phone signals, even the refrigerator makes puts out a lot of radiation. The TVs sometimes. You can check your walls for dirty electricity, and what that means is when, I'm not sure where you're from, but when our electricity comes in our house, at least in the United States, the voltage is 120 volts. But depending on how far away we are from the electric company that sends the electricity, it can be less than 120 volts or it can be more than 120 volts. And if it's more, then that stuff is running around the wires in our house, and it can come out as ions in the air. So I use these like grounding devices, and let's see, you can get those from, I interviewed once, he's a guy named Alan Maher, so I think it's Alan Maher Health. I can't remember exactly his website, but I've recommended for years, he has pads that you can put on the bottom of kids' feet that helps to take the extra buzzy electricity out of them. He has things you can plug in the wall. He has things to mitigate electromagnetic frequencies in the home. So Carrie, if you want to type into the box, just Alan Maher, M-A-H-E-R, health designs. I'm not sure if you want to find the website, Carrie, and type it in, that would be awesome. And people can order things from him or just ask him questions about the electricity. The other reason your child might be crying at home, think about maybe what they're eating, if that's creating an issue. So it could not be just, it could be overwhelm of sensory stuff. It could be something in the house besides the electricity or electromagnetic frequencies. I know this is a long shot. I would say have your house checked for radon gas. Or carbon monoxide emitting things. It's possible, unlikely, but possible. If they're super sensitive, there could be a smell in the house they're super sensitive to. It could be something they ate that they're eating at home and not at school. I'm not sure exactly, but look for those things. It could be that they feel safer at home crying. So when we go out to school and there's a bunch of strangers, even kids in our class can be strangers if we don't know them. It's not a safe place to let your emotions go, to be seen. So your child might be waiting till they come home to just kind of collapse and let it all out. Not knowing anything else about your situation, those are the first things that are coming into my head. And so, a lot of times our kids come home from school and they're crabby and they're cranky and they let out their emotions, and that's a sign that they trust being at home. So it's a good thing, but we as parents have to deal with that. We need to be there as a support for them, or set up a supportive place for them where they can, have their space and kind of chill out and ground. Grounding pads are good for that. And also just going out on the earth and touching it with your feet. Not always possible when it's winter time. 8-year-old bites hand and rocking with big feelings. What do I do? Okay, yeah, that's definitely a sign of anxiety. Let me get into that in a moment. I just want to, I'm going to cover some other reasons why our kids might have anxiety, and I'll cover that too. So, you know, actually, I'm going to do that right now. I think what's happening probably is your child I don't know, because I don't know your child specifically. I don't know the rest of your situation, but my guess would be with that type of thing, there's a lot of toxins and a lot of infectious agents or pathogens in the body. So kids on the spectrum are very dysregulated, not just with their nervous system, but with a lot of systems in the body. And a lot of times the immune system will not, it'll be dysregulated. You know how we have fight or flight nervous system, fight or flight, rest and digest, right? And we try and balance between those. Well, our nervous system, our immune system has, you know, a certain Th1 or Th2 dominance. And I don't want to get into all the science of it necessarily, but suffice it to say, one of them is like our innate immune system, and it's like kills the microbes. The Th1, the Th2 dominance is when we have a lot of allergies and a lot of autoimmunity, and like that part won't shut down. It's kind of going against us, and the Th1 is shut down, so it's not really getting those microbes or the harmful pathogens out of the body. And a lot of us are imbalanced in that way, a lot of our kids. And so what I'm thinking is probably going on with the hand biting, could be parasites, could be that's his nervous tick, right? And the crying, it just sounds like he's really, really miserable inside, and that he needs to get, like, imagine if your bathroom sink at home is clogged because there's hair and gunk and whatever in there, and the water's not going down. So this is how I see potentially his body is. It's just loaded with all these pathogens and toxins, like in his sink, and there's a clog, and his body's not letting go of them, and the immune system's not recognizing them. And even if it does, what happens, it's going to kill a pathogen, and it's going to release more toxins for the body to deal with. So this is a classic case where I would say you need drainage. I'll get into that in my strategies for, you know, just in my next section, in strategies for helping to drain his body. There's a lot to be said on it, and I just want to finish with why some of the other reasons our kids could be have a lot of anxiety. And this could also play into your child. You know, we could have a neurotransmitter imbalance, right? And usually anxiety is a lack of inhibitory neurotransmitters. So what that means is the brain is lighting up and lighting up and lighting up and lighting up with these neurotransmitters that kind of get us, I don't want to say crazy, that's not the right word, but just make us a little bit more activated. And Gaba is a neurotransmitter that's the calming one. It's really well known. Gaba, it's G-A-B-A, and it's GABA aminobutyric acid. And it's an amino acid derivative, and it just fits in the brain cells, the neurons, as it fits in these receptors, and it just helps to quiet and calm things. So that's one of the things I would recommend as kind of a stopgap measure to help calm. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So not enough inhibitory neurotransmitters, not enough serotonin. Serotonin is that neurotransmitter that makes us feel really good and happy. Like if we eat sugar, we feel really good, you know, and satisfied, because it lights up our brain in the happy way, right? Makes us feel happy. So if we're deficient in serotonin, we're not going to be happy, and that can lead to anxiety. It can also lead to depression. And 95% of the serotonin is made in our gut. So you know, it's pretty well known that kids on the spectrum have gut issues, right? Things aren't happening well down there. It's out of balance and there's leaky gut. So that's one of the things we want to work on is leaky gut, and we want to bring that serotonin up. Now, it's a tall order to fix the gut, right? We have to fix the microbes in there. We have to have good gut flora. And sometimes that means fermented food, like sauerkraut, kimchi. There's different kefir and yogurt. You can get yogurt that is non-dairy for those who don't do well with milk or you want to be dairy-free. Body Ecology, Donna Gates at Body Ecology has a bunch of like fermentation starter cultures type things. Probiotics, prebiotics. So prebiotics are becoming all the rage. That's fiber. That's going to feed the good bugs in your belly. So all of this will help with balance in the gut, and also helping with the balance of the neurotransmitters. So that's a little bit about neurotransmitters, and there's a huge connection to the gut. And I would suspect with the biting and the rocking and the crying, that's a piece of it. Genetics can dictate our neurotransmitters, so there's certain mutations that can make it hard for us to get rid of a neurotransmitter like dopamine, or to produce enough dopamine, and those might be associated with more with attention, a lack of attention, ADHD. Definitely toxins from, I think heavy metals are a big issue. Radiation, which not many people are talking about. So radiation in the land, in the earth, we have radium. Radium is a radioactive element, and it breaks down into radon. So you've heard about radon gas that can get in your basement, comes up from the earth, and if you breathe it and you don't have good circulation, it can kill you. Radium is what happens before radon. So if we have radium in our water, that's not good. It sits in our cells. It's kind of like calcium. It can get into our bones, and it can get into our mitochondria. It can get into a lot of things. You can, if you're in the US, you can check your water supply, your city water supply, by going to the environmental working group. So Carrie, maybe you want to type this in. It's ewg.org. And there's a place on there where you can type in your zip code, and they'll pull up the information of your city tap water. And what they'll give you is the contaminants in it, and then what the environmental working group thinks are, based on what they think are safe limits, how many times over the safe limit you are. So for example, I think in my water there's radium, and I can't remember, maybe it's 10 times over the limit that they think is safe. I see trichloroacetic acid and benzene derivatives. I see a lot of different things. I've just looked at, my friends' zip codes, my parents' zip codes, and so you can look that up, and it'll give you what's in your water. So you should always be purifying your water, and it'll give you what kind of filters will purify that stuff out. So that's really cool. Okay, so I was on toxins. So radium, also heavy water. So this is hydrogen water that's heavy. The hydrogen has 2 protons instead of 1 proton, and it just can mess up the mitochondria. So that's another thing that people aren't talking about a whole lot, but I think is an issue, and I'm starting to find. All right, other toxins that I find with my clients are endotoxins or exotoxins. And what that means is those little microbes you have inside of you that are not treating you well, they're the pathogens, they poop out toxins, and then they mess things up too. There's brain inflammation, right? A lot of us know about that. You can figure out if your child has brain inflammation by doing a trial. I heard this from an autism doctor, so I'm just repeating what I heard. If your child is holding their head, pushing like this, pushing their forehead, banging their head, you know, kind of knocking themselves around a little bit. Definitely signs of anxiety, right? Because if you have a headache or you have pain, it's gonna like set you on edge. So what this doctor recommended was to do a trial with ibuprofen, not Tylenol, definitely not Tylenol or acetaminophen or paracetamol. Ibuprofen, which is Advil or Aleve, and give your child some of that, and see if it makes them feel better. If it makes them feel better and calm down, you know there's brain inflammation. So what do we do about that? We can't give our kids ibuprofen every day. I mean, we could, but we don't want to. What we really want to do is get to the root cause of that inflammation. And that could be something called mast cell activation. A mast cell is an immune system cell that's just kind of overly triggered. I will be interviewing someone in my upcoming summit on that. But basically it means there's histamine sensitivity and that there's a lot of inflammation. One of the things that helps with that, Dr. Let me see if I'm gonna pronounce his name right. I'm gonna look it up. Theorides or something like that. Sorry if I butcher that. Anyway, he has a company called Algonaut, and Carrie, you can type that Neuroprotect in the box. Neuroprotect it's a supplement he developed, and it has luteolin, which is an antioxidant. I'm looking for luteolin, quercetin, and that works with histamine, and rutin, and it's in a nice oil base that is allows a great delivery system and allows it to get into the brain, into the body. So that's something you may have to get that through a practitioner. I'm not quite sure. So a lot of you might have heard of the Nemecheck Protocol that uses olive oil and I want to say inulin, and I think there's one more ingredient, fish oil, I think, Nordic natural fish oil. And I think the reason it works is because that oil is really soothing to the brain. Fish oil is really soothing and really calming. Another reason we can have inflammation is just, again, from the microbes. They can get into the brain, but their toxins can get into the brain. We can have ammonia, that really gives us brain fogginess. Propionic acid, that's produced by yeast, that is just messes up the brain, and methanol. So all these things that these bugs can produce can really mess up our brain and mess up the function and, you know, contribute to the anxiety. I think I mentioned earlier, we can also have undeveloped areas of brain. The brain develops unevenly. And so we might have one area of excellence, like, right, the brain is feeling really great when this part develops, and then maybe we're sick or there's something that happens when this other side develops 3 months later, and it just never really develops. So we can have this uneven brain development. And tangles, right? Tangles are, you know, I think I explained where the brain's developing and it's kind of too much and we need to prune it and it doesn't get pruned. Let me answer a question, Helen. How can I give Gaba? So Gaba, I've opened capsules of Gaba before and it's a little bitter tasting. I've put it under my tongue so it can get in right away. I think, Carrie, if you'll type into the box if you haven't already, Quicksilver Scientific has a GABA that's liposomal. And what liposomal means is it's the GABA and other things in there are surrounded by a bunch of fat molecules, and those fat molecules will merge really easily with our body cells. So if you squirt it, it's a liquid, if you squirt it under the tongue, and try and have him hold it as long as he will. If he won't, he won't. It'll still get into the cells, and that, I think that's probably the best way to do it. Can GABA be given as a normal supplement? Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I wouldn't overuse it. Like, you want to give it for a purpose, right? And that's to calm. So I wouldn't give it just to give it for no reason. I don't think any of us want to do that. All right, a lot of our kids are under stress, physical and emotional pain, so that contributes to anxiety. You know, you don't feel good when you're sick. I already mentioned sympathetic dominance, or that fight or flight mode that we're just constantly in. The other piece of that is the rest and digest part can be like really just shut down. I mean, like not even online. So we're never going to be in rest or digest, so that there's always that anxiety. Lack of oxygen. A lot of kids do hyperbaric oxygen. They go in those hyperbaric oxygen chambers, and that it's a pressure. It's like what scuba divers use when they have the bends, right? So they go in, and the high pressure forces oxygen into the body. I personally don't feel like we need this. We do need more oxygen in the system, but there's other ways to get that. And one of the best ways I love is there's a product from Cellcore Biosciences. It's this company I've just discovered in the last year, and I've been using a lot of it. It's pretty much the only, one of the only companies where I use their products and I actually feel a difference. I feel like they're working, and I'm pretty healthy normally, and I don't see effects from supplements. I know most of your kids are probably pretty sensitive and they will see an effect, but I can tell you, I've never seen anything work as effectively or have an effect as the Cellcore products. So the one I'm talking about is called biomolecular oxygen. So Carrie, if you want to type that in, you can do the Cellcore Biosciences, go under products, and it'll say biomolecular oxygen. And anyway, that'll help oxygenate cells. But know that with these products, if you get any of them, you have to go low and slow. You have to work with somebody who is going to guide you with them, because you can go too fast, you can do too much, and I wouldn't want to like throw your kids so out of whack just by adding, like, say, 1 drop of oxygen. It can make huge differences, but you know you need to titrate it up, which means go low and slow. All right, there's a question: can GABA be given as PM, as needed for calm? As PM, I'm guessing you mean in the evening. Absolutely, that's like a great time to use it. Good thinking. All right. Let me pick up my notes here. Oh, really key is, mom and dad, if you're stressed, your kids are going to be stressed. Remember, I said their energy field's really open. They're going to totally pick up on all your emotions. I don't care if you have a really nice look on your face and you're saying, oh, we're going to eat soon, you know, just hold on. But inside you're totally stressed. They're going to pick up that totally stressed. So, you know, it could be a really good idea for you to do some calming things on yourself. So I think I'm going to give you one strategy right now. All right. Yeah, so one strategy for us parents to calm down, and this can also help calm our kids, is breathing. I know we take it for granted. We all breathe every day, but here's a kind of breathing that's going to, remember I talked about the fight or flight and the rest and digest and how out of balance they are. This one's going to put them more in balance. This one really brings up the rest and digest side of the nervous system. So what you do, and so this, the way you do it is, mom and dad, parents, caregivers, you're going to do this around your child. They're going to automatically pick up on what you're doing. You can guide them, don't force them, but typically our kids are going to mimic us. And if they're not paying attention or they're not giving you eye contact, you don't think they're looking at you, you might be surprised. So here's what you do. You're going to, and you can practice it with me right now. You're going to take a deep breath in for 4 counts. So breathe in. Hold it for a second, And then breathe out 6 counts. And do that again. Inhale 4 counts. Just hold it for a second. Exhale 6 counts. It doesn't have to be 4 and 6. It can be 3 and 5. It could be 5 and 7. Whatever it is, you want 2 counts more on your exhale than your inhale. Another thing, since I'm thinking about it, popped into my head that you can do is this third eye region between your eyebrows, when we put pressure on it, gentle pressure, or like if we are sitting on the ground and or on a chair at the kitchen table and we put our head touching this third eye spot on the table or on our hands on the table, that's a calming mechanism to put us into rest and digest dominance. So that's another thing you can do with your child, is get them to do a calming motion, and you can actually teach them how to do this on their own. Like, you just need to do it a few times and teach them, walk them through it, speak them through it, even if you think they don't understand, and say, yeah, when you're feeling distressed, or you're feeling anxious, or you feel like this or whatever, then let's lay your head down like this and just put pressure here. So you can eventually teach them how to do that themselves. I just want to say one more reason our kids could be anxious. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the body, and I think it's mostly that kind of stuff. But another thing could be, let's say your kid's in school, maybe they're a preteen or a teenager, and can be anxiety from performance or expectation anxiety, right? So if I want to please the teacher and do good work, she calls on me in class, and I get flustered and anxious because I want to say the right thing. I want to do the right thing. I want to appear smart. I want to look good in front of all my peers, right? And we know peers can be some of the toughest critics and judges. So, your child might want to please you, your parent, a caregiver, a therapist. So just keep in mind, those can just be like more anxiety on top of other anxiety. All right, I talked about some of the things that I see we can do to help our kids with anxiety. I did talk about the Gaba, the calming neurotransmitter, and so it doesn't always cross the blood-brain barrier. It doesn't always get in. That's why I like the liposomal one. But a lot of our kids have leaky blood-brain barriers, so it can probably get in. The type of GABA I like is called Pharma GABA, P-H-A-R-M-A. You want to type that in, Carrie? Pharma GABA. And it's called Pharma GABA because I believe the difference between regular GABA, which might just be made chemically, synthetically in a lab. I don't know that for sure. But the Pharma GABA I know is made by a yeast microorganism, and it's not, don't think Candida yeast. I think it's a Saccharomyces cerevisiae yeast, which is what they use in beer brewing. So it's made by a yeast, and there is some reason that it's better. Maybe it gets in better, it's more effective. I don't have the science behind that, but I've heard that again and again and again from my practitioner friends. And I cannot give you a reference, but I would look for Pharma GABA. So if you're looking on Amazon, or actually wouldn't buy anything from Amazon, if you're looking for the supplement company you like to use, do Pharma GABA, not GABA, if you can at all avoid it. That one from Quicksilver, there's one with the Pharma GABA has some other things in it, and there's also CBD, one with CBD oil, and that can be really calming because it works on that endocannabinoid system that has a calming effect. Passionflower is another really great brain calming thing. I think there's a company called Anandol, A-N-A-N-D-O-L. Carrie, maybe you could look that up and put in a link. I recall running into them at an autism conference, at several autism conferences. Anandol and their main ingredient is Passionflower, and it's very calming to the brain. I already talked about the Neuroprotec from Dr. Theo from Algonaut. And then we talked about the neurotransmitter. We talked about the serotonin and dopamine and these neurotransmitters that are in balance. A quick fix could be 5-HTP, that's 5-hydroxytryptophan, 5-HTP, or just plain tryptophan. So I'm getting a lot of information, well, from other practitioners, but also there's this book I read by Julia Ross called The Mood Cure. If anyone is really interested in delving into the neurotransmitters and amino acids that can help them, this is an awesome book, The Mood Cure by Julia Ross. And Trudy Scott, who does the anxiety summits online, she's does this work of Julia Ross. She's awesome. Hopefully I'll have her in my summit. The idea is that you look at the symptoms and then you give these calming amino acids, and that helps calm the brain. So 5-HTP and tryptophan are a couple of them. And those can be used, and as well as the GABA, and those can be used to calm, and they might not work for everyone. You know, our bodies are very individual, and that might not be what's going on for you, but you can do a trial of that and see how that'll help. Some other calming supplements or compounds are magnesium. So the magnesium formula that gets into the brain the best is called magnesium glycinate, Glycinate. So you want to type that in, Carrie, magnesium glycinate. And there are a lot of magnesium forms, and some of them have magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate, magnesium citrate, or, you know, different forms. So if you have one that has different forms, that's fine, but glycinate is the one that gets in really well to the brain. Magnesium malate is good for muscles, so if you've got kids with low muscle tone or you need some more energy for the muscles, that would be awesome too. So we can get magnesium in as well through Epsom salt baths. And I would recommend, I know some kids react to this. I think the magnesium can be too much for them and like turn on processes, and then they can kind of have a detox reaction. I haven't heard of that very often. So a magnesium, Epsom salt bath that's just magnesium hydroxide, and then that'll get in through the skin. St. John's wort is another herb that's calming, and that will usually be in calm formulations. I already mentioned fish oil, and of course antioxidants. So those would be, I think the luteolin that's in the Neuroprotec is an antioxidant. CoQ10 is an antioxidant. There's a lot of antioxidants out there. You'll see a lot of blends. Yeah, I don't think I want to go into all the antioxidants. I'd rather just have you get a nice blend. And this is where I think you really need to talk to a practitioner and get some testing done. You can do trial and error and try different things on your child, but know that you might have reactions. So if you wanted to do, if you have a good practitioner, you know, awesome. If you wanted to do a consult with me, we could do that. Maybe, Carrie, you can type into the chat box how to book a consult with me. You just go to my website, autismtransformed.com, and it's all over the place how to book a consult. Is there a way to test for brain inflammation? I think this could be a reason my son hits his head. Absolutely. Like I said, you can do that trial with the ibuprofen and see if he calms down. That's going to be a sure sign. You can look on that Algonaut website and see if they have a test for mast cell activation. I think there is. Let me let that roil around in here for a minute. Answer another question. Christina Lee, what about magnesium 3 and 8? Is that good for the brain? Let me just double check something. You're right. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, significant absorption intracellularly in the brain, great for mitochondria. Contains 8% elemental magnesium. Yes, that's another good one. Thank you. Thanks for adding that in. I appreciate that. Magnesium glycinate. Let's see. Let me think about tests for brain inflammation. I'm trying to think if Great Plains Labs, they have tests for the gut and for different metabolites. And so that can give you an idea of what's going on in the gut. So that might be useful. But it's not exactly. All right, Monique, you asked what is the Algonaut. The Algonaut is, that's the name of the company, and the product is Neuroprotec, and that's got those antioxidants, luteolin, rutin, and where's my list? Quercetin, which is great for histamine, the histamine response, and it's in a really highly absorbable form. That's why that brand is so great. I just talked to an expert on mast cell activation yesterday, so she was saying that was like an awesome brand. So I'm going to go with that fellow practitioner expert on that. Let's see. Another thing that might be really great is melatonin. So in that Quicksilver blend that had the Gaba, it might have theanine, it might have melatonin. So all of those, sometimes there's calming, there's sleep mixes you can get. Those are all really good. And they're not going to work for everybody, right? GABA might work for my child, but not for your child. So this is why I really feel like it's helpful to have a practitioner on your side, someone who's helping you figure this out. Because I can tell you all this stuff generally speaking, but every body is unique, every system is unique. Everyone has their unique genetics and sensitivities. So I don't want to give you misinformation. I want to give you possibilities and have you zero in on what's the best possibility for your child, you know, and that's why I like to work with people individually, because everyone's an individual and everyone is different. So we've posted a lot of the products I've talked about in the chat box. Let me see. A vitamin B6 might be in some of those formulations. That's also pretty calming. Let's see, what else do I want to say? Yeah. So here's the thing. Why do our kids need the calming things? Why do they have anxiety? Why do they have these neurotransmitter imbalances? I'm really holistic minded and very functional medicine minded. And to me, you have to get at the root cause, right? What is the root cause? And time to cough. So what's the root cause? The way I see our kids, so we have anxiety, that's a symptom we're seeing. We have these things inside that are causing it, either imbalances or toxins. What do we need to do? Well, I mentioned earlier that if you have the clog in your bathroom sink and you have all the hair in the drain, right? What you have is this bunch of water that's not draining, and you know, gunk in the water. So this is what our kids are like. You know, imagine if you didn't take the garbage out of your house for a year, what would it look like? This is what our kids' bodies look like. I always say that. But they're full. They're really full. And what we need to do is drain. We need to get that hair plug out of the sink so that they can drain this stuff out. So always, always key is drainage. I can't emphasize that enough. We have to get drainage. So you ask, what is drainage? So we have certain systems in our body that help get the toxins out. And we know about the liver, right? The liver definitely helps detox. But the lymphatic system, it runs parallel to all of our, you know, it runs in the neck, parallel to our blood vessels. It's in the head. This lymph is in the head, right? And if your neck lymph vessels are tiny, like a coffee stirrer straw, they're like you know, really, really narrow, and they're not wide like a big smoothie straw, you're not going to get that lymph and the toxins out of the brain. You're not going to get them to drain, right? You want everything from the head, the toxins from the head and the brain to drain, and they can only go through these vessels. And then they go eventually get to the liver and get cleaned out. Your child's not draining if they're not pooping every day, and if their poop doesn't look like a nice long, you know, solid formed log. If you've got little rabbit pellets, your child's not really draining. It could be the liver, it could be the gallbladder, definitely could be parasites contributing. So you really need to open our kids. Kidneys are key. If your kid rashes out, they have rashes after they eat something, or just, you know, randomly their gallbladder's not working, right? Our skin is a big detox organ, so we'll put things out through our skin if other things are blocked. Our lungs, our respiratory tract, it exchanges toxic gases, right? Our blood comes through the lungs and we breathe out stuff. So if your child has bad breath, that's a sign that they're eliminating, but they have a lot of toxins in them that they're eliminating. So let's see, practitioner in the New York area. I'm not sure where you mean New York, if you mean New York City, or if you mean New York, the whole state. There's a lot of good practitioners there. Dr. Richard Kenneth Bach is up in upstate. Also near Rochester, Zendi Moldenhauer. I'm going to type that into the box. Let's see. Zendi is CENDIMOULDENHAUER. She works a lot with kids with PANS and PANDAS. So I didn't even mention that. PANS and PANDAS, pediatric acute neuropsychiatric symptoms. And PANDAS means it just comes on from strep, and PANS means it can be any infection. We have something that comes from the microbe. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, and our immune cells say, hey, that really looks, it crosses the barrier, and we have immune cells, antibodies to it. But then those antibodies say, hey, this protein on the brain looks really a lot like that. We better attack it. So that's another reason autoimmunity can happen, because our own brain tissues, our own brain chemistries look like, for example, milk proteins or microbial proteins. So then we start self-attack. So anyway, Dr. Zendi Moldenhauer, she's a doctor up in the Rochester area who works a lot with the PANS and PANDAS and what they'll call pediatric encephalitis, and that's just basically inflammation in the brain. Can you recommend a doctor in the New Jersey, New York area? I can't off the top of my head, but you know where you can look is on the, you guys can type this in, MedMaps. I'll type it in actually into the box. So MEDMAPS dot, I think it's org. Let me put the www. Oops. It's hard talking and writing at the same time. Okay. So yeah, there it is. It's coming up. So this is MedMaps is an organization for medical. It's called Medical Academy of Pediatric Special Needs, and this is where doctors go to get trained to work with autism and different neurodevelopmental things, and practitioners are listed on the website. So look on that where it says find a practitioner, someone who's been trained in this, and they'll understand you much easier. So I would recommend a MedMaps doctor. These used to be the Dan Doctors Defeat Autism Now, and that organization went, I don't know, went away. And then MedMaps started up, and that's run by Dr. Dan Rossignol, who has been in this for years and years and years. He's awesome, and the training is awesome. I've been to like the full training of the MedMaps last year, and so practitioners who are trained with that will really be able to zero in and help you with the brain inflammation and the anxiety and determining what your child has. And I want to let you know too. I definitely recommend you have a pediatrician who is in the know, like someone who's going to understand you and not cast you aside and say you're crazy or put your child in an institution or there's no hope. You know, we want to avoid those people. They're out there. And I just want you to know too that I do work with clients all over the world, and I do distance sessions. So I'll do distance consulting. Again, the way to start working with me is to set up a consult, and maybe Carrie, you've typed that in already into the comments. Okay, I just want to get back to you. It's Christina asking about the OAT test. I talked about that. Someone asked if there's a test that you can do to figure out brain inflammation. Yeah, the OAT test is probably the closest. That's more gut related, but it'll give you, it looks at different metabolites and it looks like at different things that microbes might be producing. And it can help in that regard. You're super smart, Christina. You've been around the block, I can tell. So good job. You want to help me next time? You are helping me already. So yeah, I just wanted to say too, I appreciate people who are chiming in like you, Christina, because it takes a village and it takes collaboration and lots of practitioners. And I certainly don't know everything under the sun. Like that's why we have a lot of specialists and a lot of people who do their different things. But what I do know is when I work with clients, I like to make a body biomap of what's going on inside their body. And besides drainage, which is key, and I think I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. If there's two things I learned at the MedMaps training, it's that we need to look at different, and my background's as a cell biologist and geneticist and molecular biologist, so this stuff just turns me on. I geek out on it. So if there's one thing I learned, is that we have to look at the mitochondria inside the cells. And what that means is the mitochondria are little organelles inside the cells that produce energy for the body. So if your child has low muscle tone, or they're lethargic, or they're really tired when they come home from school, or they're tired after walking, like that's a sign they've got mitochondrial dysfunction. There's something like 20,000 mitochondria in each brain cell. So if you can imagine, if we're deficient by even half of those number of mitochondria, we're not going to have the energy, right? And there's lots of reasons why we have mitochondrial dysfunction. And what I'm seeing is a lot of it is toxicity. And then our mitochondria slow down and we produce what's called the reactive oxygen species. These are the things that start destroying different parts of our cell. And and that's why we have antioxidants like CoQ10 and that luteolin and all the good stuff. And what we want, astaxanthin, what we want to do is we want to get those reactive oxygen species out of the body and out of the mitochondria. So mitochondrial function, key. Second key cellular process, and many of you have probably heard about this, is methylation. And there's that whole genetics stuff about methylation. If you've heard of the MTHFR gene, that's a piece of it. So the two keys are fix the methylation and fix the mitochondria. You got those two things, and then it's like having, instead of, you know, 2 people on your baseball team, it's like having the full team of 9 players, right? If you've got mitochondrial dysfunction and methylation dysfunction, you're down to, you know, 1 or 2 players on your baseball team. Sorry for the baseball metaphor, it's just what popped into my head. but you know, you've got only less than half your players. And then if you have your full team, you're able to score runs and go in the outfield and win the game, right? So that's what having the mitochondria working and having the methylation working is like. So those are besides drainage, I focus on those cellular functions. So when I work with a client, what I'll do, excuse me, I'm getting so excited. What I'll do is I will assess these really important functions and then give you things to help those functions improve. And, you know, what's going on there, I'm telling you guys, it's mostly toxicity. We drain the toxins out, and there's strategies for that. And like opening up the liver, opening up the gallbladder, opening up the lymph, making sure urination is on board, like the kidneys are working well. Those are the key things I look at. And so you need to have those assessed and have those looked at and help them if they're not being helped. And then we still have to get the cells working better. And when the cells work better, everything's going to start working better. Okay, question is, how do we know if mitochondrial DNA is damaged by autism? Oh, how do we know if our child's mitochondria or his actual DNA has been damaged by the autism? So I think I would rephrase the question, Lejam. Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to say you're asking the wrong question, but you're kind of asking the wrong question. I don't think the mitochondria or the DNA is damaged by autism. I feel like the autism is an expression of that being damaged. So, so the mitochondria being damaged can lead to the autism symptoms. The DNA being damaged can lead to the autism symptoms. And that's kind of like the root cause. That's what's first. That's what's down in the ground in the root, right? So how much do I want to say? Let me just say a couple things. So yes, mitochondria do have DNA. The mitochondrial DNA doesn't code for everything that happens in the mitochondria. So in the nucleus of the cell, we also have DNA. So some of that DNA makes proteins and things that the mitochondria use. So I guess I want to say I'm not looking at whether our mitochondria DNA is damaged or our cellular DNA is damaged. Any of it can be damaged. And the damage for the DNA usually comes because we don't have methylation, right? Methylation is a big controller of our genetics. And we can have toxins. So if my hand right here is a piece of DNA, we can have a toxin on it, and then that can kind of mess up the DNA. We can also have just mutations in our DNA. So, so yeah, I hope that answers your question, and then that can create the autism symptoms. And what the key is to fix the mitochondria. So there is a company that does mitochondrial testing. When I do testing in my assessments, I use muscle testing, and that's a whole other subject. But muscle testing is basically asking the body what it perceives as happening. So if you're in the office of someone, let's say you're the parent, the adult, and someone is testing your arm like this, they test to see if you're weak or strong in response to a supplement or a question. So that's the method I use. Been using that for almost 15 years. I just tap into the body and I'm able to get answers just because I've been doing it so long, and I'm just really good at it. And when I have distance clients, I muscle test myself as a surrogate. So I step in as your child's body, and I'm basically communicating with your child with their subconscious mind that remembers everything, and I'll ask just a series of yes/no questions, and that's how I get my body biomap. And I do muscle testing like this in the video, where I'm just pushing. My bottom finger is giving resistance, that's like the arm, and then the top finger is pushing down, that's like the hand pushing down. So when I assess, I can ask the body any question, right? Because we know the answers. So what I'm finding is a lot of toxins. I'm finding radiation. I'm finding mold toxins. I'm finding heavy metals. I'm finding a combination of different things. Everyone's a little bit different. Okay, what's the best, Christina asking, what's the best way to improve mitochondria or increase energy? Thank you, great question. I was getting to that. Yeah, this is where I want to talk about cell core biosciences. And again, the most spectacular company that sells supplements that I've run across. And believe me, I've had a lot of interactions with a lot of supplement companies. So what's so special about their stuff? Okay, so one of the things they have is, I'm just going to talk a little bit about their products, and maybe Carrie, you can type again into the chat box their website, and if you guys want to check out their products as I'm talking about them, you can. So their first one is called Bioactive Carbon Minerals, and yeah, I'll recommend some other stuff too, just a sec. They're bioactive carbon minerals. The way I understand them best is they're fulvic and humic acids. One of those, I think the fulvic acid stays in the gut, and it's picture like little octopus arms, like just pulling in the toxins, okay? The humic acid travels throughout the body. It's nano-sized. It goes into the cells, and it's charged up with, it's very alive and charged, these carbon molecules, and it's charged up with different minerals. And let's say it goes to a brain cell and says, hey, oh, you need zinc? Here's a zinc. I'll take that mercury from you. Thank you very much. Or it says, hey, you need molybdenum? Here, there you go. Aluminum, I got you. I'll take that out. So it's kind of adaptogenic in that way. So that's the bioactive carbon minerals. So it'll help pull things out of the cells and pull things out of the gut. They have things that help the bowels move. They have products that help the kidney and liver, like to help tone them up, which are herb-based, Ayurvedic-based. They have oxygen. I mentioned that biomolecular oxygen product already. I don't really want to do an infomercial for Cellcore, but I'm just really excited about them. They have some other compounds. Let me think off the top of my head. The bowel mover, the kidney liver support, right? So they have parasite cleanse stuff. That'll come much later. Oh, the binders. The binders are, a lot of people don't know what binders are, so I want to explain. A binder is something that, it's like a sponge. Activated charcoal is a binder. Things come through the gut and it sucks onto it, and then it'll take it out in the feces. So the binders that Cellcore has are very specific for different toxins. Biotoxin binder, that's great for mold toxins, Lyme toxins, other bacterial and yeast toxins. Their VIRAD-CAM is for viruses, radiation, and other chemicals, environmental chemicals. So that's your one for radiation. Awesome. I mean, boy, did I notice effect with this one on myself. I think I have a lot of radiation and probably pulled viruses out of my liver. And then their HMET is a binder for heavy metals and environmental toxins, like glyphosate. And that one you got to go really easy on, because if our kids have a lot of metals, which I believe they do, it's what I see in my clients, then you just have to pull them out slowly. You can't go fast. So these are the binders. Binders will pull the stuff out from the gut and make sure it goes out in the feces. Chlorella is another really great binder. I love blue-green chlorella. It's an algae. And what that'll do is pull heavy metals from the gut, and it'll take a little bit of burden off the kidneys that usually has to filter those things. Yeah, I think I'll answer the question about low muscle tone and carnitine. L-carnitine is a really great mitochondrial supplement that helps. That's the one that helps fatty acids get into the mitochondria, so to bring in energy, to produce the energy, go through the whole what's called the Krebs cycle to produce energy. CoQ10 is a really awesome one. I didn't prepare these. There are a bunch of other ones, and I can't think of them off the top of my head. Certain B vitamins, B2, B3, those are NAD and FAD. So there's certain compounds that are used in what's called the electron transport chain, and that's the thing that makes ATP in the mitochondria. So there are certain B vitamins. Yeah, let me look at the questions again. What about zeolite, like PBX or TRS? Yeah, the COSIVA Advanced TRS system. I don't know, Carrie or Rebecca, if you want to type that in, the website to get that Advanced TRS. So it's Advanced Toxin Removal System. And what that is, that zeolite, it's like a little caged molecule. And so picture like a geodesic dome, and it has a lot of spaces in there for the heavy metals to come in, and it's nanoparticle size. And I don't know about PBX, but I know the TRS, the COSIVA Advanced TRS, It's made in the lab, so it's not mined from the ground that could have other heavy metals in it, but it's made synthetically in a lab. It's tiny, tiny particle size. It can roam throughout the body and pull those metals out. And what I find is when I test people and when I test myself specifically, because I use the advanced TRS, I'm using the cell core binders, but I'm also using the TRS. I test that it tests really well for me to keep using it. And like that for a lot of clients. The thing I love about these binders from Cellcore is they're activated, they're energized, so they have a lot of energy to pull out. Activated charcoal is dead. Think about it, it's burned wood. So what happens in a fire? Energy is consumed. So it's really energetically dead. And what I love about these bioactive carbon minerals and all these binders is that they're super active and charged. Thanks, Lajam. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right. I've learned so much from your post today. I'm tearing up and thinking there is a way to get my son better. Of course there is. Yes, I say always have hope. This is amazing information. Just need a good doctor to get started right away. We have an HBOT chamber that I hope will help. The thing about the HBOT is I think there's a timing for it. So if your child is so loaded with toxins, I don't think the oxygen is going to do as much good as it would do once you start draining. So Lajam, if you want to set up a session with me, we can like create that biomap for your child and take a look inside, and I can let you know what what toxins are going on and what you need to focus on. And that's what people do when they do all the diagnostic tests, like the Great Plains Lab OAT test, and there's other tests and things that people do, but I just ask the body the questions. Let's see, I think I was talking about other binders, the cell core binders, the Chlorella. I do like activated charcoal. That pulls everything, so it'll pull supplements as well. I also like BioSil. It's BIOSIL. It's from Natural Factors. And BioSil pulls aluminum out of the cells. And what I'm noticing is now that I'm on the cell core products, I don't test that I really need the BioSil. We should all be working on getting aluminum out of our body, parents, kids, everyone. I think it's just scattered in the air these days because of all the geoengineering, what they're spraying in the air. And we can get aluminum from so many other sources in food and water and stuff. So definitely everyone should be working on getting aluminum out. I find that most people's loads are just such a burden for their body. And so BioSil, if you don't have the cell core products, I use BioSil for years, every single day. Again, if you're going to use any of these, I recommend, checking with a practitioner. Like I muscle test to see what would be the best amount for the body. But you want to go low and slow. If you go out and buy BioSil to pull aluminum out of your body, you might want to take 1 drop or 1/10 of a drop. If you or your kids, excuse me, are really sensitive, then you just need to go low and slow. I'm going to have an autism recovery summit this May, so that is like this amazing resource, free to watch, that will just give you all kinds of possibilities for how to help your child. Everyone is different, so everyone needs to take a slightly different approach. If you read about things on, that next new hot supplement or protocol on Facebook, it could work for your child, it maybe not. Your child might be sensitive to it. And you know what, if you want to be notified, I recommend you get on my email list. So you just go to my website, autismtransformed.com, and there's a place to get a couple free downloads. Just enter your email address and your name, and then you'll be on my email list. Let's see, we talked about drainage. Detox is important. Those binders help pull out the toxins. The zeolite will help, the nano zeolite, the BioSil. We're going to have someone on the summit talking about chelation. I would not recommend IV chelation personally. I think it's very traumatic. But we'll talk about other methods of chelation there. And chelation just means pulling the metals out of the body. But I think the things like advanced TRS from Cosiva and these cell core binders, hot stuff, you guys, hot stuff. I mean, amazing. So I think those might do it instead of chelation. Talked about fixing methylation and fixing the mitochondria. Exercise is really good. I know if we get tired, it's hard, but exercise is good to help with the drainage and the lymph flow. We need to stop leaky gut, you guys. We need to have some gut healing. I don't want to go into the whole gut healing protocol today, but there are a lot of things. There's so much information on gut healing. So part of what goes with the gut healing is also getting the bad microbes out and putting good microbes in. And that's one of the things I cover. If you were to work with me one-on-one, we cover all of this, all of these things I'm talking about. So getting the microbes out, getting the metals out, getting the radiation out, getting the heavy water out, that heavy hydrogen. We talked about the deep breathing, and if you as a parent are relaxed, your child will be more relaxed. I know I went into a lot more than just anxiety today, but it's really hard to talk about just one thing when it's all wrapped up together, and there's like, we're a whole person. There's this holistic stuff going on. It's not just one thing to tackle. It's a lot. All right. I think I'm gonna wrap it up for today. Oops, there is a text coming in. Great, thank you. I really wanna appreciate my assistants, Carrie and Rebecca, who are both watching this and on the call and helping me with putting things in the comments. I want to appreciate all of you who have come to listen live or who may listen after the fact, and I really hope you get something out of this. Again, really find a practitioner you trust, someone who knows this stuff. I can work with you from a distance. It's super easy for me, and I'll give you a body biomap of your child, and we'll tackle drainage, and we'll tackle getting rid of those toxins and pathogens as best as we can. Let me just check last messages. Thanks, Christina, for your kind message. Yeah, if you think I'm awesome, come work with me. You should see my kids are like, they lose the anxiety, they start to speak, they go to sleep, they have big bowel movements. You know, everyone's a little bit different, so they, you know, have slightly different things that happen, but they're just like, parents mostly say they're more present, they're more here, they're more with it. Yeah, they're more with the family, they're more kind of in this world. I know it's hard to describe. Everyone describes it a little differently. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and take care, and do the breathing at least with your kids, you know, try it out. Thanks.